Today on Inside Story, fighting for Kung Fu, Hong Kong's martial arts standards and skills taking a beating. Hello, I'm Nick Waters. Since legendary Kung Fu master Bruce Lee rose to stardom nearly 3 decades ago, Hong Kong has gained a reputation for Chinese Kung Fu. Action scenes choreographed by Hong Kong directors have become popular in many Hollywood blockbusters. But in real life, are the standards of Kung Fu and skills of local martial artists any better? Renato Reyes of Inside Story has the details.
I think martial art industry in Hong Kong is declining.
In the olden days, that you go for martial arts for self-defense and for combat, but nowadays just for demonstrations.
Everybody is now doing it in a professional way, but we still stay in the amateur standard.
It's all vintage Hong Kong, from the Kung Fu style of martial arts to the gravity-defying and acrobatic stunts. All choreographed and perfected by Hong Kong directors, a style that is now a mainstay in most Hollywood action scenes. This genre of slick fight scenes has placed the territory on the map. But are Hong Kong's martial arts skills any better off-screen? Just about every form of self-defense can be found in Hong Kong. From Chinese Kung Fu or Wushu, Japanese and Korean martial arts, to something as exotic as the Brazilian form of self-defense, they are all here in Hong Kong. Called capoeira, Brazil's indigenous martial arts combines music, dancing, acrobatics and singing.
Capoeira is a Brazilian martial art created by African slaves in Brazil around 500 years ago. They use practice capoeira in dance, to fight for freedom.
It's believed capoeira emerged from the tribes of African slaves who were brought by Portuguese colonizers to Brazil. To deceive their white masters that they were not practicing martial arts, the slaves added songs and dance rituals to disguise their style of fighting. 6 months ago, Preto introduced capoeira in Hong Kong after eliciting a strong response to the performance given by his group at City Plaza in Tai Kung Shing 2 years ago. It didn't take long before capoeira attracted more than a dozen students.
The first time I saw capoeira, I saw somebody doing sort of like a cartwheel. I thought, wow, this is really beautiful. And I asked this guy what he was doing, and he told me capoeira. So I went to it, and my second class, I just loved it. I guess the rhythm, the music, the people, the energy was the most amazing for me.
But despite the territory's reputation in the region as a mecca for martial arts, many veteran masters say Hong Kong is losing the power behind its punch.
The short range of Chun kick, yeah.
With 25 years of experience in martial arts, Donald Mak has been teaching Wing Chun, one of the many forms of Chinese Kung Fu, to local students and expatriates at this flat in Yau Ma Tei.
Wing Chun actually is an internal martial art. Internal martial art emphasizes more on a soft approach, which means we don't use force against force. It's really using the right energy, right timing, right angling to handle opponent's strong force.
Designed by a Shaolin nun several centuries ago, Wing Chun is meant for close-range fighting and is ideal for people with a smaller build, especially women. But Donald Mak says fewer people nowadays are taking up Kung Fu, unlike in the 70s, when it caused a huge craze in Hong Kong, judging from the number of martial arts magazines at that time.
Nowadays, people have more options, like they can have more time spent on computer, karaoke, and then qigong or bodybuilding. Then it makes also leads to less people learning Kung Fu.
Kung Fu students today are also not as dedicated as those in the past, who viewed martial arts not as a hobby, but as a way of life with its own philosophy.
Practitioner now, even though they learn, is spend less time in the old days in practicing Kung Fu. So it's unavoidable that the standard goes down from point of view because people are not so dedicated as before.
And there are even fewer instructors around, like Donald Mak, who works as a marketing director in an elevator company and only teaches Wing Chun part-time. That's because it doesn't pay much to be a full-time Kung Fu teacher.
Because, you know, with this place, like this place, already 5,000, 6,000, per month. Then how many people you have to accept, to maintain the overhead.
Yes, you cannot make a living out of teaching martial arts. That's because you cannot charge very much. The most you can charge about $50, $60 per month.
An advisor to the Chinese Martial Arts Association, Chun was the former head coach of the Hong Kong Kung Fu team in the last international tournament the territory joined in 1982. He says it's inevitable that Kung Fu standards and skills have deteriorated through the years.
Well, because we don't have tournaments. People have nothing to look forward to. If you have a tournament, then people would practice harder and train harder for the tournament. But nowadays, we don't have a tournament for over 20 years.
He says most Kung Fu practitioners nowadays are trained not in hand-to-hand combat for self-defense, but only for exhibitions, like this weekly demonstration at Kowloon Park in Tsim Sha Tsui.
You see a lot of people doing it in the park in the morning, and they just doing like shadow boxing or dancing. That's for demonstration, it's not for real combat.
The heyday of martial arts in Hong Kong started in the late 40s and early 50s, after scores of Kung Fu masters in the mainland fled to the territory following the communist takeover of the country. Many of them opened schools and passed on their skills to the succeeding generations.
In those days, people has got nothing to do in the evenings. We don't have televisions, and very few people owns a radio set, and most of the young storekeepers, the stores mostly close at about 6 o'clock in the evening. Then the storekeepers, they finish their dinner, and they always go to Chinese martial arts schools to meet friends and to learn Chinese martial arts.
You block it. You don't block it like this. If you block it like this, you're liable to.
He says it was not even unusual for Kung Fu practitioners to harden their bodies, like their forearms, to the point of deforming them to better parry weapons. But it was in the 1970s when the craze over Kung Fu and other forms of martial arts peaked in Hong Kong, around the time when Bruce Lee kicked his way to Hollywood stardom. And Bruce Lee's untimely death in 1973 inspired a cult following among people in Hong Kong and around the world, many of whom took up martial arts, including the actor's own style of Kung Fu called Jeet Kune Do. Nearly 3 decades after his death, Bruce Lee's legacy lives on and has helped open the door to Hollywood for many Hong Kong martial artists and action directors.
There is no better martial arts in TV than Hong Kong martial arts. You have the best martial arts directors. In real life, I have never met a person in Hong Kong yet who, for my belief, was up to standards, to world standards in martial arts. I'm sorry to say.
A former European champion and silver medalist in the World Karate Do Championship, Pierre Ingracia opened this martial arts school and fitness club in Central 3 years ago.
Off we go. And charging in. Don't charge in. Complete the cross, then shuffle.
Keeping fit through martial arts exercises has become a worldwide trend, including in Hong Kong.
，longer on your jabs. Longer on your jab cross.
Only a few years ago, step aerobics was the fad. Now many people, mostly executives or white-collar workers, don boxing gloves to stay in shape. But Pierre Ingracia says most of the instructors in many fitness gyms in Hong Kong are not even qualified to teach martial arts.
There are aerobics teachers who pretend that they can punch and kick. As a matter of fact, that should be forbidden. Most of them actually have qualifications from some Mickey Mouse organization in the fitness industry. Jab, jab, cross, rip into the body.
In his health studio, Pierre Ingracia says 80% of the people using his gym have signed up for fitness-oriented kickboxing and other types of fighting-based courses. Only 20% are serious martial arts students.
Very small market and absolute not money making. So if you're interested if it actually could be called a market, I don't think so. There is no product of real martial arts which will ever make money.
The teacher who counts Bruce Lee as among those who has inspired him to pursue karate laments that Hong Kong has become what he calls a third world place for martial arts.
I have never heard of any very high standard in Chinese martial art, but I have had students in Kung Fu from England, from North America, and all of them have been disappointed.
But students of Wing Chun Master Donald Mak view Hong Kong as the best place to learn Chinese martial arts. Not only is the territory close to the origins of Kung Fu in China's Shaolin temples, they say their Sifu, the Chinese term for teacher, is also only a few generations away from the mainland masters who brought Wing Chun to the SAR.
He's close to the root as well. It's not diluted. I mean, literally 2 generations away from the person that trains me is Yip Man himself, who's directly linked to the Shaolin monks and Bing Tsung herself. So it's a very direct lineage. It's a very pure form of the art, and I think that's common all over Hong Kong because Yip Man brought it over here.
I think you have in Canada a lot of people that may train for 2-3 years and then they branch out on their own and call themselves a Sifu, and they really don't have the experience. They may have never even been here, whereas Sifu's been training for over 20 years.
But without Kung Fu tournaments, there is no way of knowing whether the fighting skills of these students are any good. Their counterparts in karate, taekwondo and wushu, however, will get the chance to prove themselves in international competitions this year, including the Asian Games in October. But are Hong Kong's local martial arts athletes well trained enough to win medals?
Welcome back. China has asked the International Olympic Committee to include Wushu or Chinese Kung Fu in the 2008 Olympic Games in Beijing. In Hong Kong, Wushu is among the 13 elite sports in the territory, and Hong Kong's athletes have won many medals in the last 5 years. These athletes, including other martial arts practitioners, have been training hard for the Asian Games in October. But are the level of training and government support adequate enough to give Hong Kong's martial arts athletes a fighting chance to win medals? Here's Renato Reyes again.
It's Tuesday night, and the members of the Hong Kong Karate Do Federation are warming up before today's rigorous training. The Federation has been training an elite team to compete in the Asian Games in October. Kenny Wong has quit his job so that he can train full-time for the kata, or the form demonstration category. He won the bronze in last year's Asian Karate Federation Championships in Malaysia and is gunning for gold in the Asian Games.
Actually, this time the opponents are the same with the ones we competed with in Malaysia. I am confident that I can get a medal again.
His teammate Chan Ka-hing, who won a bronze in the AOCO Championship in Singapore 3 years ago, will also compete in the same category.
Of course I'm excited. I'm confident too, because we practice up to 6 to 8 hours a day, 7 days a week. With such good preparation, we are very confident.
I will try the best. My target is to get a bronze medal.
Another hopeful, Chan Chun Ho, is among those competing in the Kumite, of full contact free karate, and has been training 6 days a week. Aside from the Asian Games, the Federation will participate in 3 other major karate tournaments in Indonesia in June, Japan in September, and Spain in November, on top of the 3 local competitions in the SAR. But despite the hectic schedule of tournaments, the Federation does not have a full-time coach or even a permanent venue to train. That's because karate is not considered an elite sport and only receives a token subsidy from the government, the amount of which depends on its athletes' performance in international events.
In Hong Kong, we're still an amateur and still no full-time players or coach or technical director, something like that. So, to compare with other countries, we still have a place to catch up.
For the Taekwondo, right, we don't have the full-time venue. Even we got a full-time venue, we don't got a full-time coach. And even we got a full-time coach, we don't got a full-time student. That is the problem.
Like karate, Taekwondo is also not an elite sport and only gets $1 million a year from the Sports Development Board. In fact, the Hong Kong Taekwondo Association has to send its representative to the Asian Games to Taiwan for full-time training. Unlike in other countries, the association says Hong Kong has no systematic way of training martial arts athletes. That's why standards are not improving.
You can see the countries in Taiwan, the countries in Korea, countries in China, they're all professional trainings nowadays. We don't have this kind of training in Hong Kong.
But one type of martial arts which is getting all the government support is wushu, an elite sport in Hong Kong since 1997. Wushu athletes who are also preparing for the Asian Games have a permanent training venue at the Hong Kong Sports Institute in Sha Tin, and a full-time coach from the mainland who has 50 years of experience.
Our team has a relatively good training environment and supporting facilities.
China has officially applied to the International Olympic Committee to include wushu in the 2008 Olympic Games in Beijing. The mainland's traditional sport is being heavily promoted in Hong Kong by the government. 2 months ago, the SAR invited China's wushu national team to perform in 1,000 primary and secondary schools. The government plans to introduce wushu in all primary schools in November and hire coaches to teach students.
They would go to schools on a regular basis to give demonstrations and teachings, and this has a positive effect on promoting wushu. That's why I think more and more people will be participating in wushu.
Hong Kong's wushu team has the strongest potential among local martial arts athletes to win medals in the Asian Games. In the last 5 years, the team won 18 gold, 26 silver and 17 bronze medals in 4 international wushu competitions, including the Asian Games. It is ranked among the top 3 in the world, along with China and Vietnam.
Members of the Hong Kong Wushu team have won a lot of medals in the international competitions, and they are stars of the sport.
Despite the government's support for Wushu, the coach admits the level of training in Hong Kong is not as high as in the mainland. Although the Hong Kong Wushu Union says the training is full-time, the head coach says the student athletes can practice only at night and are ranked as semi-professionals.
As you can see, they are training here at night. Members of the Wushu team are mostly students. They can only use nighttime to practice.
To celebrate this week's annual Buddha festival at the Polin Monastery on Lantau, daily exhibitions will be given by Shaolin monks from Henan province, where up to 600 Kung Fu students train for several months each year.
They are very hardworking and they love Wushu. They have a unique interpretation of Shaolin Wushu. They come to the temple because they believe practicing Kung Fu can give them a healthy body.
The intense Shaolin-style training is ideal to learn Kung Fu, but it may not be appropriate for a hectic place like Hong Kong. But there is still no denying the need to modernize martial arts training in the territory.
Upgrade the standard of Hong Kong to make it maybe a capital city of Kung Fu. I think a modern approach, the more tournament, and then have some subsidies from government. I think it is also important.
Associate internationally with other teachers, bring people to Hong Kong of high standard and not pretending to be of high standard.
In Taiwan, Rocky Tse says athletes are trained early and sent to a sports college. Even if they devote their entire youth to training and don't win medals, they don't have to worry about finding work in the future because they can always teach in the sports college. In Hong Kong, the government-sponsored training system is based on merit, focusing its support only on 13 elite sports, from windsurfing to wushu, where the territory has excelled. As for the rest of the sports, their associations will have to compete for government funding, depending on how well the athletes perform in international competitions.
You don't have the good result, they don't support you. But they don't support you, you can't have a good result. There's always a problem.
In the end, an individual's commitment to his art is what leads to excellence. Aikido is one of the most difficult forms of martial arts to master. Regarded as ethically more superior by Aikido practitioners, the modern Japanese form of martial arts is purely defensive, enabling people to subdue aggressors without hurting them seriously. It does not use force against force, but uses the opponent's momentum against himself and helps practitioners harness and project their inner energy. That's why it takes a lot of patience to learn Aikido. For Bernard Chan and Neil Francisco, it took them 10 years before they earned a black belt in this modern Japanese form of martial arts. Although Bernard, who is a civil servant, and Neil, who is an engineer, have full-time careers, they devote their spare time to teaching 3 Aikido classes. At this Monday class at the Saiwan Ho Indoor Games Hall, students here only have to pay a token fee of $30 each per session, most of which are used for the rent of this venue.
You can protect yourselves from danger, and it's great exercises too. Fun. Yeah. It's interesting.
Although they don't earn much from teaching, the 2 teachers don't mind sharing their skills, all for the love of Aikido.
We learn our martial arts where it's not commercial learning environment. I mean, it's that's what we felt that martial arts should be learned.
Whether it's Aikido or Wushu, it will take a great deal of effort to master these centuries-old techniques of martial arts. Only by having modern and systematic training, ample government support, more competitions, and personal commitment by practitioners and teachers alike can Hong Kong establish someday its reputation in the world as a center for martial arts. not only on film, but also in real life.
That wraps up today's program. Thanks for being with us. We'll see you again at the same time next week. From our Inside Story team, goodbye.